Yeah, so growth is really foundational. These are going to be your major pillars. This is what makes your house stand up. It makes you be able to play the game. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to have some key points in there. So it's important. You have to grow. But one of the misconceptions that I see people do all the time is they're like, well, we need to make more money, so let's grow. And I'm like, okay, I mean, you need to grow because growth and scalability, they both happen. But let me let you know that growth does not produce cash. It does the exact opposite. It devours it. It's not going to solve your money issues. You have to solve the money issues first. And this is the analogy that I will give you. If you have a leaky bucket, right, you got holes, it's riddled, it doesn't matter how much water you pour through it, it's going to flow right out just as fast as you're pouring in. Why in the world would you go through all the expense, all the effort to overflow that bucket? Because you're just going to lose it, right? So growth doesn't fix cash. That's why we have to fix cash first. And that's kind of probably the first third of this, and that is about your cash management, profitability, pricing, those things.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Welcome to the Play Your Position podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lou Kaiser, author of The River Only Runs One Way and The Far Unlit Unknown. The book's available at your favorite online book retailer. Go check them out. Today, my guest is Leslie Hassler, who is an expert in transforming small businesses into thriving, freedom-generating ventures. She is the founder of Your Biz Rules and a business strategist with 17 years of entrepreneurial experience. She's the author of First This, Then That, and the upcoming book, Scaling Rich. Leslie's holistic approach helps businesses achieve predictable profits and sustainable growth, all while maintaining a balanced quality of life. And who doesn't want that? In today's episode, we dive into her insights on creating businesses that can succeed and have financial freedom. And we cover a lot of ground about ways small businesses can achieve their cash goals through growth and scalability strategies. You're going to learn, for example, about the difference between growing and scaling a business, something I didn't understand until Leslie explained that difference so beautifully. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you, if you want to connect with me online, I hang out on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram, and you can always visit my main website, maryloukaiser.com. Get on my email list. That's where you can keep up with all the latest things going on with the show and my books and in-person appearances and creative ventures and the like. You can find Leslie on LinkedIn. She's got a bi-weekly newsletter you'll want to check out. You can also go to yourbizrules.com/PYP for access to resources to help you grow and scale your business. But right now, if you could press pause and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, that really helps. All right, team, if you're ready for kickoff, let's go. All right. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for joining me and Team PYP today on the Play Your Position podcast. I have one question to get us started. Are you ready for kickoff?
Let's go. I am so ready.
Yes. We are in the height of football season, so it's so fun to think about that. You are a very accomplished woman, as you know, in the introduction to today's show highlights, but in that introduction, I am not able to share with listeners what your particular journey has been like into leadership. So let's start there. Tell us your story about when you first got that call to leadership. How old were you? And give us some context of what was going on in your life, and then connect the dots to today and how that first call has led you to what you're doing now.
do believe that I was probably born with the talent for leadership. And here's how I will express it. If you had to say, like, how old were you? Probably 5 or 6.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
here's why I'm going to say that. Because I got the label bossy really early on. Teachers, adults for sure. And now having 2 children of my own, I understand completely why I got that moniker so early on. But I do think, especially for women and females, we get that moniker very early on. And I will tell you, I didn't love it. I wasn't trying to be bossy.
Right.
What I was trying to do. And so it not stunted my growth, but it surely kept me more quiet, right? It kept me in my place, if you will, quote unquote. And it did take a while for me to come around and own my voice.
Yes.
And be confident in my voice. And also to improve my leadership skills, because heck, I think you can have a talent, but the skills, the communication, the finesse, the emotional intelligence that's required, that takes practice.
It does.
Right? And we're not born with that. We have to figure that out or be taught or go through some, bumps and bruises along the way. In our vernacular, hopefully not get as much as a personal foul, but maybe get some penalties along the way to help course correct and guide. So today, I definitely would identify with a leader. I will say that I don't feel like I get, boss or bossy too much, but I will say actually Boss's Day was like a couple of weeks ago, right, for us. And one of my teammates sent me flowers.
Aww.
And it's like, it's my hope that Your Biz Rules continues to grow and provides you with mucho joy and even more money. Happy Boss's Day. I'm better for knowing you. And I'm like, that I have the card.
I was going to say, how could you?
It's on my desk.
Right there.
Right there.
Right there.
And that's a signal that I'm successful. I'm succeeding. I'm not done growing by any means. I'm not perfect by any means. I stumble. I fumble over my words. My brain moves faster than my voice can. So I'm like, stop, rewind. Let me retract that. That did not come out how I wanted it to come, but it's an intention, right?
Yes.
And it's an intention that guides everything that I do and every interaction that I do.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how as a girl, you became aware of external voices, messages to quiet down, as the kind of the vernacular today, to dim your light, to not show up as bossy. And you were saying in the pre-chat that you're an introvert. I am as well. And yet, like you, as a girl growing up, I was tapped by teachers, mostly, and then in the community for leadership roles. I don't know what I was doing. I didn't have the awareness, but also like you, and I think like a lot of listeners who are identify as female or have women in their lives and girls in their lives, that message is still out there, despite all the advancements that we have made in terms of don't let anybody dim your light, show up fully as yourself. And that's one of the premises of the show is I really believe that when you can show up as yourself, play your position, you win at life. Doesn't mean it's going to be free from the fumbles, the fouls, the losses, right? But at the same time, so you're a mom, you mentioned that, you have 2 children. How do you bring what you've learned about leadership into parenting? Because I know that's also a huge topic of conversation today. Leadership is certainly in the boardroom, but it's also at home. And I'm wondering, you're running a business, but you're also building a family. Is there crossover? Do you have separate approaches or philosophies? Like, what is your take on that?
So much there. So I have 2 boys. They're both in college. They're in their early stages of college right now. And I'll tell you, like today, I'm so impressed with who they are, the leadership they take in their own lives. And that was my goal really early on. My husband and I sat down and were talking, like, what do we want our children to be when they grow up? And I was like, I want them to be free thinkers. I want them to have the ability to think for themselves. I want them to be perceived as kind. I want them to show up, participate, all these things. What I didn't really realize is I didn't actually want that until they were like 19.
Fair.
My teenage years were really challenging because I had free thinkers who could express their opinions.
And challenge the status quo of mom and dad.
I was like, be careful what you wish for. But I think it's so interesting because I definitely did try to apply what I knew professionally or in my business into my children. And it's so interesting to me what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And I think in some ways they made me a better leader in a lot of ways. So we definitely went through that period of time with my oldest, especially. He's like, Mom, I am not one of your clients. Do not coach me. Like, okay. And then I think one of my favorite things he says is like, what is it? Is Gondor, and there's another city in Lord of the Rings.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
There's two cities, they communicate through fires, right? If one city needs another help, they communicate through the system of fires.
Okay.
Now you'll understand. He goes, Mom, I'm Gondor, you're Rohan. If I don't light the fire, don't help me. I'm like, duly noted. I will correct that. So I think in some of those ways, really what I had to understand with the kids is that I had to give them space to play their own game.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this is actually a really great illustration of the type of leadership we have to have as entrepreneurs. And I call it fluid leadership, because what I'm so interested in watching is I feel like people look for that one style of leadership that rules all things. And I haven't found that to be effective. I have found that you sometimes have to lead from the front. And in terms of kids, this is the early years, right? Before they start driving, you're very directive, encouraging, you're telling them what to do. Teenage years, you have to kind of lead from the side, meaning I'm going to walk next to you. We're going to get through this together, but I'm not in front of you anymore. I have to lead from here. And then as I go into college, I have to lead from behind.
Yeah.
So when my boys call and freak out about something, that sounds hard. What are you going to do? Right? It's really and truly not about me leading anymore. It's about me supporting them and finding their own path to lead through their own lives, because I want children that are independent.
Yes.
Yes. So it's a dance. It's just a dance. And there's sometimes if the hurt, you can't play the game. If you're gonna play the game and you're gonna play to win, then you have to be prepared to get sidetracked, to learn, to get the penalties, to get a loss. You have to be willing to do all of that, right? So that's gonna happen. And when it happens, it totally stinks. It just is not great. But to show them that they can rise through it is really what's impactful. So like I said, I'm super proud of the guys and the men that they're becoming out in the world, and they do great things.
Yeah. And I can see how that philosophy can apply to being an entrepreneur, building a team, where in the beginning, you really are directing your team. This is how we do things around here. When you're building your culture, when you're establishing your SOPs, for example, when you're looking ahead to, and I know your specialty is in helping small businesses with growth strategies. Like, how do we scale? How do we, not to become the next Apple necessarily, but to get beyond where you are right now. Yeah. And at some point, when you're the founder, with many of Team PYP is leading their own thing in one way or another, at some point you do have to say, okay, I trust you, team. I'll be on the side over here. We'll be walking together. And then eventually you're the back of the room, and they've got to do it. You've got to trust that you've trained them, you've integrated them into your culture, that they have the confidence to make decisions and solve problems and not come running. What do I do here? Right? I love that analogy. I love the picture you painted of when your children call and they're freaking out and they're 19, 20 or older, and it's not our job to fix their problem. That you asked the most powerful question. Wow. Or you said, wow, that sounds hard. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. And I think, when it translates, none of it's easy. Let's talk about
that.
No,
let's not. It isn't.
None of it's easy. But I think especially in business, that transition, right? Is trust is a big component of it.
Huge.
Do you know what I have found is one of the sticking points that actually keeps people from letting go, makes it harder for the owner to let go, is where your personal value is. What you feel like your worth is in the business actually has so much more to do it. This plays true when we have multi-generational businesses, so family businesses, when we're passing generations or even just passing between siblings. It's that question of, well, our society teaches us that our value is in doing the work and that hard work earns success. Right? This has been the moniker. That paradigm is shifting and has been shifting for the last 20 years, but we're still clutching to it. I mean, like it's a lifeline. Look, hard work, dedication, showing up, putting in the practice, doing the reps, this all matters. It definitely does, but it doesn't necessarily have to be hard. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about work. And so you go through that journey as an entrepreneur of really shifting your value from doing all the work to ensuring that the work gets done. And I will say, maybe even 18 months ago, we've been in a mode of expansion, and we were basically hiring people to be me, to be that coach and advisor. And we've invested a tremendous amount into their education and the culture and the process, all the things you were talking about. But then that moment that I realized I didn't need to be there. And I needed to start being quiet and pulling back. I will tell you, I went through the same identity crisis that everybody goes to. And it was like, okay, obviously I felt that I brought a lot of value in there. Now, the question I ask myself is, where now can I build value? Because I have taken care of this. We've done what we set out to do. Now it's time to let my team take care of things and trust that they're going to do it.
Yeah. It's something that you have to experience. There's no shortcut. There's no jumping over that phase. That process, there isn't. And lots of people, I hear it, and every time I hear it, I think about being a mom, and I also think about having been in business for as long as I have, and I bristle at it, is people will say things like, I'm hoping that my journey will make it less painful for you. And I think it's a wonderful and noble intention, and it's not realistic, because the only way we grow is through pain and experiencing some challenges and having to physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually let go of things. And that's just the life cycle. I lost my dad 3 years ago, and I don't care. I've read all kinds of things about people who've lost their parents. I have friends who lost their parents 25, 30 years ago when they were much younger. And until you experience that place, whether it's, this isn't my role anymore. Now I'm the legacy of my family, or whatever it may be. There's no way you can know. And so I'm an advocate for stories matter. I love what you're sharing. I love what every guest has shared. And as we go through life, be willing to embrace the hard part, because what's on the other side, and that's what I want you to talk about now, because you've got 2 books, Leslie, that have wonderful titles, by the way. As a book lover and a book writer myself, I'm just so impressed when the titles, I'm like, yes, I love first this, then that. I mean, that's so awesome. But talk about, in more detail, about this process of growing as a leader, and how writing those 2 books have reinforced what you know and also helped you discover things you didn't.
I think for me, writing is one of my major forms of expression. We do a lot of writing with what we do. This is another form. But when I write, I solidify, right? What's gray and fuzzy becomes clear and firm. The process with First This Then That is actually really interesting, because the first version I wrote 6 years ago, and I wasn't happy with it. So I didn't promote it. I didn't get it out there, right? And when we were looking at really Scaling Rich, which is the second book that'll be out in 2025, when we were looking at that, we're like, First This Then That needs some love.
Oh, yes.
stand toe to toe. And so we went back going, okay, let's just bring it into brand. Let's bring it on message. Went through it and then got into it. By the time I got into it, I was like, oh no, it needs a full rewrite. And so we rewrote it in 3 weeks to get it back out there. And I think it was a testament, though, of showing the solid foundations that we've been building as a company and how we've been refining to be able to get what's there. I mean, first this and that I am hugely proud of right now. It's being very successful out there, but more importantly, it's the playbook. Because what I've seen with entrepreneurs time and time again is you didn't get into business, you didn't get to where you are because you did nothing. But you do get to a point where you don't know what to do.
True.
Right? Because entrepreneurship is nothing more than on-the-job training. Every day is a new day for me. And Mary, I don't know, how long have you been in business? I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years.
Yeah, I went out on my own. It'll be 20 years next year. 2005 was when I pulled the plug on employment.
I was 07, so you're a little ahead of me. But the point is, like, I feel like every day is a new day. If I'm growing, if I'm playing the game to win, right, I'm learning every single day. And so this is just this kind of concept of, look, you've got to have foundations right to get growth right. Because if you don't master growth, I'm going to really be blunt here, you will not master scalability. Right. And growth and scalability are concepts that we totally in the public just, bleh. It's like, so
let's define those as you understand them, because I think those are words that get tossed around all over the place on social media. And it seems as if that's the end all be all. And it is for some people, but not for everybody. So let's define how you work with individual or, small businesses and entrepreneurs. How do you present that context? Here's growth, here's scalability, how they're symbiotic and how they're different.
Yeah, so growth is really foundational. These are going to be your major pillars. This is what makes your house stand up. It makes you be able to play the game. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to have some key points in there. So it's important. You have to grow. But one of the misconceptions that I see people do all the time is they're like, well, we need to make more money, so let's grow.
Interesting.
Okay, I mean, you need to grow because growth and scalability, they both happen. But let me let you know that growth does not produce cash. It does the exact opposite. It devours it.
Yes, it does.
It's not going to solve your money issues. You have to solve the money issues first. And this is the analogy that I will give you. If you have a leaky bucket, right? You got holes, it's riddled. It doesn't matter how much water you pour through it. It's going to flow right out just as fast as you're pouring in. Why in the world would you go through all the expense, all the effort to overflow that bucket? Because you're just going to lose it, right? So growth doesn't fix cash. That's why we have to fix cash first. And that's kind of probably the first third of first this, and that is about your cash management, profitability, pricing, those things. Growth, though, once you've mastered it, means that you probably have a good amount of clients. You're also probably experiencing some things that feel very counterintuitive. Like you don't feel like you have the money or the time to do more. This might be a really good hint that you're actually ready for scaling, right? And scalability is where you produce cash. So growth is really where you invest cash. Scalability is where you get it back.
Interesting.
And scalability is about productivity, efficiency, capacity. What I like to say is you've planted all these seeds. You've got a farm ready to harvest. You're going to go harvest. You're going to make sure that you get everything. Now, in this way, what we love is scalability produces cash. If you're smart, use some of that cash to fuel your next period of growth. And that's the other concept that I think people get misconception about growth and scalability. You're never really done.
You're not.
You're just never really done.
You're not.
So you're going to go through a period of growth, right? And then you should be strategically trying to capture all the beautifulness of that growth through scalability. And then when you're going to hit another ceiling at scalability, you're going to have to actually go back to growth. Like you can't, and P.S., there's recovery in there.
Right.
The game has a halftime, just as a game has quarters
and seasons.
And seasons. Recovery is an important part of this because recovery is what your people need. right? Because the people that are running your business need time to catch the breath. And I've had some clients where we're like, we've built the team. We had a rough year. And I said, this year, I just need you to let your team get their footing, to get grounded again. And then we can have the massive growth and scalability that we've been talking about. So it's that strategy of knowing when it is you're doing what type of work in your business and how to build in those moments of recovery.
Yeah.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
Thank you for defining so clearly and beautifully the difference between growth and scalability. I'm having an aha moment right now that no one has ever explained this to me. I haven't read this anywhere. And I consider myself somebody who reads a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts by thought leaders, and I handpick and, very selective. And the difference, whereas to look at growth as where you're going to be investing cash, scalability is where you're going to be extracting cash that you then funnel a percentage back into the next level of growth. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. And I'm hoping the team PYP is having some of these lightning bolt moments as well, because there's, as well as I do, Leslie, that the way that social media and the internet works today is that anybody can put anything out there and make it look legit and make it seem, it doesn't take a lot to have somebody as a talking head talk about different terms and throw them around. And for anybody who's either new to entrepreneurship or has a small business and is thinking, wow, I've hit a wall, or we need to do something else, there's a lot of misleading pathways that can get people into a lot more hot water. So talk about, you sounds like you have a lot of clients. You've been in business 17 years. You've got a new book coming out. You've got this other book that you've revised and is more aligned with where you're at as a business.
Yeah.
Who is an ideal client for you? Who do you love working with?
Our ideal clients are small business people. Honestly, I call them the unsung heroes. To your point, when you're like, not how to be Apple, pretty much. I mean, while we could definitely help those companies too, I'm really looking at our ideal clients are just trying to be better. They're trying to be better in their business so they can have a better life. They care about their team. Their team is an extension of their family. They want to do better in a lot of different ways. They've just reached the limitations of their knowledge, their experience. Like I said, our clients, if they knew what to do, they'd already be doing it.
Right.
We give them a playbook and we help them learn the new strategies that really take them to the next level. Now, what I think is part of our vision is basically better lives through better business, because your business can be a cash vehicle. Not everybody's going to create wealth with a business. However, if you create enough cash, you can bring in other experts like your financial planners and things, bankers and other people who can help you create wealth. But we create a lot of money and a lot of our clients, and what they're able to do afterwards is really what makes my heart sing. We had a client that came in that they just wanted the ability to buy a house in a state where real estate was crazy. They're like, we want to buy a house. We need a good size house because we have kids. We want them to have rooms, and they couldn't see a path to doing that. So we just went into the mechanics of the business. We're like, well, let's break it down. Let's see how we can change the name of the game and create that value for you. And within 2 years, they were putting a down payment on a really nice house for them and their family. And you're like, I feel like so many of our ideal clients have those. I consider that a humble expectation, right? We're trying to put our kids through school. We want to have retirement. Hello. Please don't wait for the sale of your business to be funding your retirement. You can do that today. And it's so much fun when I'm like, hey, by the way, I told one of my clients, I was like, hey, by the way, it's June. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, and we've fully funded your 401k. Like,
Wow.
401k. And there are some advantages that business owners can have when they offer a 401k program to their staff. So A, it's a huge benefit. It shows that you care.
Sure.
But B, it's a cash saving vehicle for you as the owner as well. So
Yeah.
I don't care what that plan is going to cost you. It's going to make you more, right?
Right.
You have to have a different kind of a mindset when it comes to there. It's not always about saving. In fact, you were talking about safety earlier. I agree. It's not about safety. It's not about no risk. And it certainly isn't always about saving, right? So these are the things we kind of do that. But our clients do come to us. We are 50% 6-figure, 50% 7 and multi 7-figure. We are 90% more service-based, although we do have people that are blends, service products. Or pure products. So we've kind of run that gamut. But our last 33 clients have been across 17 different industries.
Wow.
So the thing that we say, because a lot of people get focused in on like, do you know my industry? Like, look, it's your job to know your industry. It's my job to know business.
Right.
And I will tell you, there are some industry standards. These are my quote things. There's these
air quote,
industry standards that actually aren't profitable, that aren't going to meet your goals as a business owner. If I bought into them, I'd be doing you service as my client. So actually not being an expert in your industry has made people more successful in their business, because I got to tell you, there's some genius things that I can take from one industry where it's considered normal, like everybody does this, and I bring it over to this industry and it's considered innovation.
Interesting.
Right? So that's the kind of value that we bring to the Ganner. But at the end of the day, you got to be okay with making more money. There needs to be some level of growth. We need to be working on improving things. That's who we really enjoy working with.
Okay. Is there one area of a business, because business is business across the board. There's just there's fundamental parts. It's like a car, a car is a car, even though the outside may look different, the paint color, the brand on the back, the price tag you paid, whatever. But a car is going to get you from point A to point B, right? So what's one of the biggest sticking points that you come across when you first sit down to work with new clients? And I'm asking you this question because in preparation, as listeners are thinking about, how could I apply some of what Leslie's teaching? And, we might want to bring her in and have her look at things. I mean, I'm a believer in preparation. What might come up almost immediately that makes people go, wait, what? That's what's going on here?
I love the fact that you use the car analogy, because I use that quite a bit. I'm like, you're going to bring me a Fiat, I'm going to give you a Maserati. I was like, that's kind of what we're going to do. And we're going to keep the business running while we take it apart one piece at a time and we put it back together. But the first thing we do is we get under the hood of the business.
Yeah.
And I find that there's a couple of things that people do universally. Number one is, out of all of our clients, I think 2% would say they love the numbers. So most of our clients, most of our entrepreneurs do not love the numbers, but we have to have a relationship with the numbers if we want them to behave, if we want them to do what we want them to do. And I'm like, ignoring them just gives you a ill-behaved 3-year-old, right? So we do bring a lot of clarity and management to the money side of business, because just like we said with the leaky bucket, we're going to come in and take a look at the business and we're going to try to find the leaks, because the first thing we want to do before we invest in growth or go the scalability is plug the holes. Because the magic of that is, if your bucket has less holes, you need less water to fill it. So you're more efficient, right? Yeah. Because we're always concerned at the end of the day of our owners' personal well-being.
Yeah.
It's no good to build something that's so huge and then be so burnt out you could care less.
Right.
Right. There's no gold star for that. No. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've overheard. Like, people don't even know what I do, and I just hearing the conversation, they're like, Yeah, I mean, we made it to 7 figures or whatever, but I tell you what, I work harder, I get no vacation, and I'm paid less now. So I'm like, why? Why am I doing all of this? I don't want to, please don't wait. Don't wait to get there. Do something now. I mean, today is the best day to start, right? No matter what yesterday was.
Yep.
But chances are you're going to have to learn how to manage the money of the business so that you're getting everything that you want to. And look, it sounds scarier than it is. It really is.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. We can help with that. The other thing is that a lot of times I see people stepping over the nickels, the dimes, and the quarters in the business, chasing the dollars.
Mm-hmm.
When you probably have enough nickels, dimes, and quarters.
That change jar.
Are more impactful if you just picked them up. So we call them the low-hanging fruit, right? The easy opportunities. That's how we activate money in the business to be able to fund what we're about to take you to. But then it's just a matter of allowing. And our clients that allow the change to happen, even if it feels scary, even if they don't fully understand. I have some clients now, they're like, Leslie, I don't get it, but I've been with you long enough. I'm just going to do it. I'm like, thank you. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and it was easy. And I was like, you had to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Right. And it takes an outset set of eyes. I get in my own way. I mean, it's human. It's human. But it's those really simple things when I think sometimes people are focusing on the Hail Marys.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, those can work too. However, a Hail Mary never really works in a vacuum.
No. I can't think of one football game where I've seen a Hail Mary be the strategy. It's always a last-ditch effort because you're at that desperation point.
Yeah.
Whereas a good game is when a team is moving the chains 3 yards at a time, 5 yards at a time. Every now and then when there's a really great run, like 30, 40 yards or run back from kickoff, he takes it all the way 99 yards or whatever. I mean, those are exciting, but that's not the fundamentals of football.
No.
And it's not the fundamentals of business.
Exactly. That is just what I was going to say. It's not the fundamentals of business.
Yeah.
So I always get leery when people are relying on Hail Marys because I'm like, look, even for a Hail Mary to be successful, you have to have all those pieces in place. Like people need to know their position and they need to have experienced this before. Yes, luck can happen, but like we have a client right now, they've had a phenomenal year. They've had a phenomenal growth rate with us. And this year's so phenomenal that I'm like, I want to mitigate against this being a blip. I don't want us to count on this per se, because we know it's very concentrated in one major project. So let's mitigate the blip. We're going to use this strategically, right? So that next year, if we decrease, it's not going to hurt us. We're not going to have to shrink. And if it maintains, which I think we can do because that's what we've been able to do, it's like all the better. But today, we're mitigating the risk.
Right.
Because we can. Because it's like, and that's the other thing I think people will do to themselves in business outside of using their business as a personal piggy bank.
Ooh. Yeah.
But is understand that in the good years, you have to be sheltering against a bad year. This is the time you hold back some. Doesn't mean you can't have fun. Doesn't mean you can't pay yourself. Favorite day is always payday, right? Pay yourself. But be strategic about it and mitigate the risks. Because if you are stronger, if you feel safer, you have more financial security and stability in the business. When you go to take that next risk, what do you get to do? If you like the way we look at it is, I ask my team, can we afford to lose? And they're like, yeah, we can afford to lose. I'm like,
exactly.
Let's go play the game.
Play the game.
Right? Because I'm not going to get so upset. I'm not going to get hurt. Might get a little frustrated, disappointed. Okay, I'm human.
Right.
I can pick myself back up and I can do it again. I can take whatever we learned and impact it in the business. So,
because you're keeping the big picture in mind. You're realizing that, we're still going to play the game, and we might lose. However, we've got such a strong foundation, and it's part of the risk of getting out of bed in the morning. My goodness, people forget. You wake up and you get out of bed and you think, there's a term for it. I interviewed a man many years ago on this show who talked about this term. It has to do with just this fallacy of life is just going to continue as we know it. Like nothing bad is going to happen. And he used a story about he had plans to meet up with his wife to go to a movie, and I think either she or somebody got into a car accident, and it completely changed the trajectory of the day and then the future, right?
Yeah.
And yet we humans get boxed into this idea of, I'm going to get out of bed and just go through my day.
Yeah.
And everything's going to be pretty much the same. And probably if you look back at your life, that's pretty accurate. However, to come back to what you're talking about with clients is, yes, you may have a winning season. There's no guarantee you're going to have a winning season next year. However, we can do some things to increase the odds that even if it's not quite as good, you're still going to make it through with a good record. And we're not going to be, I'm just thinking, I'm not going to name any teams just out of respect, but there's some teams this year in professional football. I'm like, why does this keep happening? Year after year? Why can't you guys figure it out? I think you need to go in there, Leslie. I think they need to hire you and say, what are you guys doing? How long typically do you stay with a client? What's you are a coach you have a company that is training people to coach with others with these businesses, but typically what's the engagement with you to get them to a point where then they are able to, move forward without the training wheels, right?
Yeah. So for our one-to-one work, and that's really what you're talking about here, on the short end, probably 2 years.
Okay.
We've had some clients 3 and 4 years.
Yep.
Really, we've had clients be here for a couple of years, go away, come back.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will say is what we find is that we help our clients fix the fundamental issues in the business, but we don't necessarily do it all for you. Because what I've seen is when I do it for you, it does not stick.
It doesn't.
I could, but I don't because it doesn't stick. And I'm in it for it to stick. So working with them, because the business owner gets better, the business gets better, right? A lot of the things we do stick. When they choose to stay on, it's because they value at least the sounding board at that part, but there's always this bigger drive. They've got a bigger vision. There's something that they're working toward, whether it's selling the business. That takes multiple years. If you haven't been prepping your business, I always feel like I say 3 to 5 years. Come on, people. It's not a 6 month, it's not a 6 month adventure. So that's really when people stay longer. And if they choose to leave, it's because they want to go through a period of recovery.
Sure.
And we support that too. And then they'll come back and they're like, all right, I'm ready. I'm like, okay, let's go. And so it's kind of a journey, but our goal is not for you to need us forever.
Exactly. Just like our children don't need us forever. At some point, launch. There you go. I got stuff to do over here.
Yeah.
Get on with your life.
we value our clients. We love them. We have a client right now that is kind of in that transition. We call it a transition, right? And it's something I'm like, man, I feel like we've been dating for so long and we're having to step back from each other. And she's still going to work with us, but in a lesser capacity. And it's like, that's great. But you can see even just that transition is exactly what she needs in this moment.
Yeah.
Because I've seen confidence increase. I've seen ownership increase. And I'm like, okay, this is the right thing for you.
Yeah. There's so many nuances, aren't there? Too, because at the end of the day, you're working with human beings who have dreams, who have visions, who their business many business people who found businesses and entrepreneurs see their business as their baby. And it's very difficult to let that go and to recognize this is not what it was when I started. Just like when you have children. I just watched the other night the movie Father of the Bride, starring Steve Martin, Diane Keaton.
Yeah.
It's from 1991. I saw it in the theater, right? Back in the day when we were going to the theater. But because I'm such a fan of Only Murders in the Building, I thought, it'd be fun to go back and watch some of his earlier work. And in that, for those of you who don't know the story, it's a story of a father who just is really struggling with letting his little girl go and seeing her become a woman who wants to marry a man and have a life of her own, right?
Yeah.
It's so parallel to, and people, again, we can prepare and read and listen and think we know. And it's until you're actually going through it
Yeah.
that you're fumbling around and trying to figure it out. And there's going to be the highs and there's going to be the lows, especially when it comes to selling a business. I've spoken with several people on this show who that is their business, is they help mostly family-owned businesses sell or transition. And you've seen it up close. It is not easy. There's
No.
so much emotion. There's it's oftentimes men for the older generations who founded a business 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and they're now looking at moving on from it. And their identity is so tied up in being that person who,
Yeah.
even if he isn't or she isn't part of the day-to-day operations, they still got their hands in the pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard to let go.
So I'm wondering, Leslie, how much of a counselor are you sometimes to people?
Every once in a while, they're like, and you're like my therapist.
Yes.
Listen, at the end of the day, I was doing a speaking engagement, and had opened up the questions, and you love some days the bombs that people try to throw in your lap. And this question was like, what is the single most biggest mistake or hardest obstacle for entrepreneurs? And I'm like, oh, good gravy. That's like asking me today on the street, how should you grow your business? I'm like, I need more info.
Right. Context, please.
Context is good. But it was funny. Like I was sitting here going, okay, how am I going to answer this? And I was like, oh, I have the answer. Hands down, I have the answer. The biggest obstacle that we have is our mind. It is our greatest strength and our biggest weakness. And we've talked about it so much, even today, is that learning to let go, and how do you shift, and understanding and responding, and where's your value? Where's your worth? And are you avoiding the money in your business? Are you growing in unsustainable ways that are costing you more than you realize? This is all about your brain. So yeah, we have to talk through how people are feeling about things.
Feelings.
And so, like, for instance, I was talking with a client who was up for a Business Owner of the Year award, which is phenomenal. And in talking to them, they were like, I just don't even feel like I belong on that stage.
Wow.
Like, I don't know what to say. Who am I? All those things we go through.
Sure.
And as we're talking through it, and I was like, yeah, but people need to hear your story. Mm-hmm. People need to know they're not alone. Yep. People need to see that normal people that they call a friend, are successful in such a way so that they can feel they can have that success. And so we talked through what that talk would need to be. It was 24 hours before her acceptance speech. Man, she nailed it. It was just tremendous what that woman said on the stage. And the response, though, coming back, the people that was so inspirational. That meant so much to me. That is the ripple that we're trying to play here, because as much as you can feel like you are the only man in that business, woman in the business running the show, people are watching.
Oh, yes.
And you are inspiring them.
Right. Just like that card that you showed me and read to me and to us today validates why it is so important to never lose sight of the fact that what you're doing and your story matters, that people are watching, even when sometimes it feels like you're completely alone. And I know loneliness is a big, big part of running a business. You've got to find your people. And you obviously, with your company, Leslie, that's part of what you get when you sign on with you. So for people who would like to know more about you, where do you hang out online? Tell us your details of where they can connect with you, find out more about you, all that stuff.
Sure. So obviously we're on major social media platforms, but I kind of point towards LinkedIn. We actually have a newsletter that we do on LinkedIn called The Profitable Growth for Business.
Nice.
We produce two articles a week on that. But I also, for people that want to know more about us, have a kind of a nice little page for your team. So it's at yourbizrules.com/PYP. And we'll have a few things there. One, if you're interested in the books, that's going to be a great place to go to find those. I'm also going to include as a free gift our book guide for First This Then That. So it's more than just somebody talking. I mean, it really is a playbook. And the book discussion guide helps you work through that playbook, if you will. And then if you're looking for more and you want to see what our team can do to help you, then there's a way to reach out to us and schedule a time to chat.
That's awesome. And team, I always encourage you, you know this if you've been listening for any length of time. And if you're new here, I sound the horn about guests who are willing to give so generously to all of us here with the, Leslie is obviously, after listening to us talk today, is an incredible source of information, guidance, expertise, and humility. She knows, just like I know, and just like many of you listening, that we don't have all the answers. We need each other more than ever. And it does take a team to win the championship. So Leslie, before we say goodbye, I like to give guests the chance to say something that didn't come up today. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this conversation that you just think is really important, or just maybe a philosophy?
I will actually leave you with the thought that I had since from previous in our conversation, and it is my favorite question to ask when we're doing strategic planning with our clients and their teams. So here's the question: what would change your world? Right? We think about all the aspects of our business, but I preface it because it's a two-sided coin. What would change your world for the better? What would change your world for the worse? And how are you, as your company, changing the world?
Wow. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for your time today, for showing up fully yourself, and for bringing your light into the world and not letting it be dimmed. Really putting it out there, Leslie. This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Had a great time.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kayser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.